major things that I want to draw the government bench's attention to. Number one, stop the propaganda. You have won the election already. You don't need to do more propaganda. The propaganda will not create jobs. It won't put food on the tables of people. It won't put clothes on the backs of people. Rather, bring your governance programs. Till date, we don't have a single definition for the 24-hour economy program. Everybody you talk to has a different definition. Program Bako, definition bebre. Program Bako, definition bebre. Spend time doing less propaganda and more time bringing your governance programs so that Parliament can assist you and work on it. No.
Let's come to this, something they call 24-hour economy. I've conducted my own research. I've collected primary data from them. I've asked 31 NDC MPs. They all give different definitions. One policy, in terms of definitions, infinite. The fact is, the NDC guys do not stay down, sit down, analyze things before they come out. What is 24-hour economy? They have no idea about what they want to do. Mr. Speaker, what we want to tell them is that Ghanaians, Ghanaians have regretted. Ghanaians is soon. And never prices of fuel.
The 24-hour economy program is not a top-down model. It is decentralized. Each district will establish its own 24-hour implementation task force, housed within the district and municipal assemblies, and aligned with our local economic development policy. This decentralized approach will allow each region to define and lead its path of industrial transformation based on its natural comparative advantages. Ladies and gentlemen, this is no longer just a vision, it is a structured, sequenced, and inclusive plan, and its implementation is beginning. I've authorized the 24-hour Secretariat to begin detailed program design and investment packaging. The draft program document will be released publicly on Tuesday for broader consultation, and I will invite you to help us finalize it. We'll officially launch the 24-hour Plus program in July this year, most probably on Ghana's Republic Day, which is a symbolic day for a bold new national agenda. To guarantee institutional stability, I'm working with Parliament to establish the 24-hour Economy Secretariat as an independent authority, reporting directly to the President and backed by legislation. This will ensure strong coordination, investor confidence, and delivery continuity. One of its boldest proposals is the development of the Volta Lake Economic Corridor. This corridor, centered on the Volta Lake and the Volta Basin, will become a national production zone and logistics spine. The plan envisions cultivating over 2 million hectares of arable lakeside land, revitalizing the fisheries sector on the lake, and creating a chain of industrial parks that produce goods for domestic and regional markets. To support this corridor, the lake will be activated as a transport highway, moving food, people, and goods more efficiently than our congested roads allow us to do currently. New floating assets, lake ports, and long-term investment partnerships will be developed in coordination with the Volta River Authority and the private sector. We must move beyond just hydropower and unlock the broader economic potential of this beautiful national asset. But the Volta Lake Corridor is only part of the broader plan. The 24-hour economy program identifies priority value chains across all regions, and these include agro-processing, pharmaceuticals, textiles, light manufacturing, tourism, digital services, and the creative economy.
Welcome back on the AM Show. We segue now into our big stories. Don't you forget, the AM Show is proudly sponsored by Whaley Properties. We provide quality housing at an affordable cost and with a flexible payment option. Now, after loads of criticism from the opposition on reneging on its promise, the government says it's set to roll out its much touted 24-hour economy. That flagship program, which has been talking about, and it's slated for July with plans to decentralize this policy. We'll be hearing from the opposition now that the government is set to fulfill this ambitious campaign promise, which President John Mahama says will transform Ghana's economic structure through extended productivity and inclusive growth. Well, joining us for a conversation, we have the Ofonso Ayeribi, Member of Parliament. He's also ranking member on the Committee for Economy and Development in the person of Kojo Oppong Nkrumah. Good morning, sir.
Morning, sir. How are you?
Kojo, it's been a while. Last time I saw you down there, I said we would be having an interaction, and here we are. Good to have you.
Here we are. It's my pleasure to be with you.
Right. I'll cede to Sweetie, my colleague, to start off the conversation.
Well, so, I mean, as at the time we are having this conversation, the 24-hour economy policy is still in the preparatory phase. You've been very critical of the policy. In fact, we just played your sound bites. We've heard that you're saying it lacks clarity in terms of details. How did the news come to you that in July they're going to launch some sort of comprehensive policy document? How did you receive that news?
Better late than never. And the reason is that the 24-hour economy policy and program, and I think we should be very clear from the beginning, there's a policy framework, and if you hear the president properly, he says there's a plan. So the plan is what I call a program. So the 24-hour economic policy and plan or program is perhaps the major economic policy and program that this administration advertised to Ghanaians ahead of the election. You recall their manifesto launch with a clock there and the elaborate explanation that the whole idea was that it is the key to solving the unemployment challenge that we are facing as a country. And so there was a lot, and there still is a lot of expectation about this policy and program. And that's why the president, I think, first mentioned that the finance minister was going to bring it when he came for the budget in March. Then the finance minister came and said Mr. Guzitano, who is a coordinator, was going to bring it. Then Mr. Guzitano came for an informal briefing in Parliament and said he was going to finish work on it and bring it before Parliament rose from the first meeting. And then now we are being told that on the 1st of July, it will come out. So this is the fourth, may I say, promise about when the document will come out, and it's better late than never.
How relevant are such documents? I make reference to, for example, to Free SHS. It worked very well. It still is working. There were some handicaps or hiccups in there. But some people said that without a clear policy document, there were some niggling bits that became problematic. How crucial is a working document for something like the 24-hour economy?
Let me start by saying that we have said that we'll be a constructive opposition. We're not here to just be poo-pooing everything the government does just because we're in opposition. We are going to bring to bear lessons that we have learned from governance, where we succeeded, where we didn't succeed. Now, when it comes to programs and policies of government, it is critical, it is seminal to ensure that the policy and program documents are tidied up and made available, in particular to Parliament, for a number of things. Because it is that which gives you the detail and then allows you to cost properly and fund properly through the budget. Again, it is that which gives you the detail that therefore allows Parliament to exercise proper oversight over what you are doing. Again, thirdly, it is that which gives you the detail that now allows everybody, civil society, media, general public, to now look at the various parameters in that policy or program so that we can measure together and see whether we are making progress or not. That way, we don't resort to claiming credit when some exogenous factors have worked for us or shifting blame when some other unintended consequences are happening. And so you'll notice that right from the first meeting of Parliament, we have been insistent that all the major programs that you are talking about, bring the policy documents to Parliament. Parliament is the bastion of democracy. When you make it public, you bring it to Parliament. the whole world, including Parliament or maybe led by Parliament, can now follow and even assist you to do a good job. So as at now, there's a 24-hour economy policy document. It's supposed to come 1st July. There's the economic recovery program that the government promised. That hasn't come. There's the economic transformation agenda. That hasn't come. You've also now got the Agric for Economic Transformation program, which has been launched, but the program document is not out. So, for example, what are the parameters? Who are the people who qualify? What are the key performance indicators? How do you, as journalists, even track that, okay, so this is the qualification criteria. These are the number of people who have benefited. There's a 1 million coders program. I don't know if you have seen the program document so that you can have a clear understanding. Then there's the Ejumera program, which was launched, if I recall, on the 28th of April. Again, that is not out. And then there's a national apprenticeship program. So about, 6, 7, 8 programs have been launched. And from our experience in government, one of the biggest challenges you have is when you launch programs and you don't have that clear program or policy document out there so that we can all co-govern and look at and even help you succeed on. And so that's why it's seminal, it's critical. And that's why we're happy that the 1st of July, this document will come out. What I find a little worrying is that in one breath, the president says that there's a plan and implementation is about to start. Then in another breath, he says that there's a draft document which will come out on the 1st of July. I think the government needs to tidy its act up and have clarity so that when you put it out, you have less obstruction, you have less, may I say, critique, and now we can all now follow the implementation so that it succeeds.
Is a draft document not part of a plan?
It cannot be. If you have a draft document, then it means that you haven't finished work on it.
I'm saying in the process of coming up with a plan, is a draft document not one of the stages?
A draft is not what you will launch.
But it's part of the process, is it not?
The president, I mean, I don't want to major on the minors, but what I'm drawing attention to is that you don't want to come and put a draft document in the public domain. If you say there's a plan that implementation is about to start, then maybe what you are doing on the 1st of July is that you are commencing implementation by putting the plan out. Okay, there's a plan we're going to implement. If what you are coming to put out is a draft on the 1st of July, you may find your horns getting, caught up in some thoughts. But I'm not going to major on those minors.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I just want clarity on this. It's like a manuscript for a book. You have a draft, even in Parliament, usually when some private members' bills and all of that come through, you're going to review it, fine-tune it before it goes through the different stages of voting, before we can say that it's an act of Parliament and then it's sent to the president to give his assent. I was just referring to it from that angle. I don't think there would be any thinking that it's a draft that would be presented. That's why I was just asking you. We need an overarching plan, but would it not go through the phases of drafting, completion, and all of that before it comes to the nation? That's all I was asking.
That's fine. And like I said, I don't want to major on the minors. The president says he's received a draft. He then goes ahead to say that the draft document will be released on the 1st of, you can play the tape back, on the 1st of July. And then he says that there's a plan, implementation is about to start. Again, like I keep telling you, I'm not here to just do critique because I'm in the opposition. No, I'm here to bring lessons from what we have learned. You want to be clear on what you are putting out so that implementation can follow. For me, it's not a big issue.
I just have a few quick thoughts for you, right, before Sweetie comes back in. We just played the tape where you were saying program back home, definitions bebre and all of that. And of course, everyone wants it rolled out as speedily as possible. Looking at the timelines, 4.5 months thereabouts, and the talk about some action to let the boots hit the ground, has it been quick enough, or do you think this time scheme is working? As far as the implementation is concerned.
On timelines, they have delayed. Remember, I told you that this is the 4th promise of when it will come out. And even with this promise, there's just a slight bit of a confusion between, is it the plan that is being rolled out, or is it the draft document that is being put out on the 1st of July? But again, I've said that's minor. But this is the 4th timeline that the government itself has set. The president said the first one, that the finance minister will come to Parliament to deliver it. He didn't do it. The finance minister, when he came, then passed the buck to Mr. Guzi Tando. He didn't do it. When Mr. Guzi Tando came in, he also then said that He needed some time to go tidy it up and come back, and that he assured that he will come back before Parliament rose from the first meeting. Parliament rose, and that didn't happen. Yesterday, the president is informing us that on the 1st of July, and that's why I'm saying it's better late than never. In accordance with their own timelines, they would have missed about 3 of them, and now they have set a 4th one. But it is still early days yet. Let the document, come out. Let there be clarity on what it is, and let's all follow the implementation.
Let me just wrap on this point so Sweetie can come in as well. I didn't hear you mention the big push. That's another major one, $10 billion in there. But if you listen to the president, he says, quote, as a destination, the 24-hour economy reflects a state where Ghana's productivity and capital utilization will become so high that will operate in multiple shifts across day and night, maximizing the return on infrastructure, human resources, and innovation. And then he says it requires deep and deliberate restructuring. On the back of that, do you have more clarity now? Any better clarity from when you said program Bako definitions be and now? Is there any better clarity at all?
So let me just say that I did not mention the big push because it has not been launched. I was referring to
so launched ones, right?
The government has launched,
right?
But the program document is not out, or the policy document is not out,
right?
And I think it's very, important thing that we need to keep an eye on. No, there's no better clarity. In fact, I have with me here the original manifesto extract on the 24-hour economy document. And it sought to provide some guidance, about some of the things that they would like to do. The challenge is that when you speak to each one of, different persons, even within the governing party, they appear to have a different understanding of it. And the president's words that he mouthed yesterday does not necessarily cure that. What you want is the final document for it to come. I think 1st July is not far away. What you want is the final document to come forward. Then you have clarity. What are the sectors of the economy that this covers? And for example, when that document comes out, I think there are about 4 major benchmarks that many people will be looking at. I, for example, and members of our side of the committee will be looking out for how that document aligns with the manifesto extract on the 24-hour economy. That's one. And also aligns or sits with the feasibility of that document. And if we have some time, we can go into it. Number 2, you also want to examine how the framework of that policy and the program aligns with the best practices when it comes to nighttime economies or 24-hour economies or round-the-clock economies. Number 3, you also want to examine how it fits into the budget. Remember that even in Parliament now, we say that even if you bring a law, a piece of legislation, and you haven't done the fiscal impact analysis, so we can't see the numbers behind it, and we haven't provided for the numbers, then it's grammar. Because you can have a beautiful idea, if there's no money to make it happen, it's just grammar. And then number 4, you also want to examine the effectiveness of the coordinating authority to make it happen. So no, there's no better clarity with the mouthing of more words. I think 1st July is not too far. Let it come. Let's have an opportunity to then do a deep dive into all of these parameters as we start the implementation.
The understanding of the policy philosophy and listening to you, I'm gathering that the 24-hour economic policy is the pivot around which all these programs and projects will revolve. Are you saying that, do you see the sense in why they have to take their time? Because we know that there were some stakeholder consultations going on to ensure that whatever they eventually come up with is comprehensive enough so that they don't leave anything out of it. That's in response to you saying that it's too late, better late than never. Do you see the sense in them taking their time to actually put together a comprehensive policy framework or document?
I did not set the timelines. They did. And you inquired from me whether I think it's delayed too much. And I'm saying that as compared to their own timelines, then they have delayed. If they hadn't set those timelines, somebody would probably say, well, then, it is in good time. But based on their own timelines, they have missed those timelines 4 times. They have delayed. But I'm saying that it's still better late than never. Now that the document is coming in, you now have an opportunity to understand in detail what it is they want to do, when they want to do it, what sort of resource it requires, what sort of output is supposed to generate, and then the impact it is supposed to make on productivity and jobs. Because this is a program and a policy that has been advertised to be the panacea to, in particular, our growth and jobs question from the NDC point of view. Also, in response to your earlier comment, no, I don't think that, and if I understood your question clearly, I don't know, but if I understood you clearly, no, I don't think that the earlier programs they have launched require the 24-hour economy policy or program before they can be executed or successful. I don't know if that's a question that you're asking, but those
the
other
policy,
programs.
may I clarify? The policy is like the anchor where the other programs will operate around. You're talking about implementation, people who would be taking something you said, it just escaped me right now. But I'm saying that if they launch this policy framework, that's not like a program on its own. It's like the anchor for how the economy will be run. So it makes sense that, or does it make sense that they'll take their time, launch these ones, the Ejumarura and all these other programs, while they understand really how they can launch the anchor for all these other programs, the 24-hour economy policy?
If I am to follow your argument, then you are buttressing one of the arguments I made when we were debating the budget.
Okay.
That who builds the first floor when they haven't built the foundation? If indeed this is the anchor program, and remember we drew the attention of the government to the fact that they advertised 3 anchor pillars, the 24-hour economy program, the economic transformation agenda, and the economic recovery program. If you go into their manifesto, you'll find these 3 there. These 3 had not been delivered, yet they were proceeding to build a first floor of other programs. So if indeed, like you are suggesting, which is what I believe, the logic is that this is the anchor program, then this is the one, or these 3 are the ones that you need to put out there first. Then everyone else who is building their program will build it on this, your 24-hour economic program, or build it on your economic transformation agenda or your economic recovery program. What we've seen is the reverse, where these other programs have been launched. Again, we are yet to see the program document, who qualifies, what are the KPIs, what are the budgetary requirements, what are the outcomes, what is the impact. We're yet to see all of those ones. And then now, on the 1st of July, the 24-hour economy program, which is the supposedly the anchor, is now going to be launched. My view, a bit confused, but better late than never. Let it come, and now let's see if we can, find a way to reconcile all of these.
All right, let me move away from the 24-hour economy and talk about the appreciation of the cedi. I had the chance to go to the markets and interact with some everyday Ghanaians, and they say that, yes, the cedi is appreciating, but it doesn't really make so much difference. I want to believe that you interact with some Ghanaians also on a daily basis. What do you gather in terms of how we are faring right now as an economy? What do you gather on the back of the appreciation of the cedi? What's your assessment?
Okay, so I think that those who say, like you are saying, those who say that, yes, it is appreciating, but there's not much of a difference, mostly are traders who are arguing, and from our interaction with them, are arguing that a lot of the things that they are selling today, they bought it at an old rate, and so they will still have to sell at that old rate. And that if this appreciation is stabilized, then they can now buy new stock at this new rate and then proceed to pass it on to the everyday Ghanaian. That is the explanation that I have heard from the people that I have interacted with. And I think it brings to the fore the question of sustainability. What is going to be done to sustain this appreciation? I mean, I've heard quite a number of economists, and if I follow all the analysis so far, posture about 5 major reasons that account for the appreciation of the currency. But like I always say, no matter the explanation that you give, and I remember speaking, during the confirmation of my good friend, John Jinapo, that no matter the explanations that you give, the people have some expectation. What matters most is the expectation of the people. In the case of electricity, no matter the explanation that you give, what the people expect is that the lights stay on and the light bills don't go up. In the case of the currency, as I interact with people, what people are looking for is some sustained stability. And my mind goes to the first 100 days of the MPP administration. I don't know if you recall, when we had managed to get some stability over the currency, which was fast depreciating before we came to power. And we were even joking that we had put the currency in handcuffs and had given the keys to the IGP. I don't know if you recall that.
Right.
Once we started, for example, servicing external debts and paying contractors after we had audited the 7 billion arrears that we were being told of, we then also started having other external obligations to service. That initial stability waned to the point where by 2024, you saw the numbers and many people were not very pleased about it. So I think the most important thing that people are looking forward to is how we sustain this. And I think it's in that context that people are asking the question, so what is the plan to sustain it? I think the government has said the plan, or what has accounted for it so far, is good leadership, and they intend to continue with good leadership. The economists who have been speaking on your networks don't necessarily say good leadership. They point to about 5 things. The Trump effect, the gold reserves that have gone to about 30 billion now, the fact that we are yet to commence the payment of contractors, the fact that because of the debt exchange program, we are yet to service external debts, and then also the currency support from our gross external reserves. If I'm looking at the numbers properly, about $1 billion that has been put on the market now to support the currency. So the question that the government will have to answer, and we're hoping that as Parliament resumes and we invite the governor to our committee, is how they are going to sustain all of these, so that in the end it will translate into benefits for the everyday Ghanaian.
All right, Benjamin.
Kojo, so before I piggyback on the conversation on the CD, let me just take you back briefly. In recent times, the president has spoken about, and we know about the vacuum when it comes to continuity of projects. He's spoken about realigning when it comes to the NDPC, so that some of these will be more nationalistic rather than partisan, so that when you come, you have to follow through with these. I say that in respect of the 24-hour economy, and then the proposal that it's going to help revamp industry at the regional level and trickle down across all the 16 regions. Are those positive ideas, though on paper we may not have something substantial to hold on to, are those positive mindsets that we could help shape our governance and economy?
The problem with the president's submission, and let me point it out to you, forgive me. The problem with the president's submission is that in one breath, he says that these ideas should be grounded in the NDPC so that it has continuity. In another breath, this 24-hour economy program is not grounded in the NDPC. It is a program that the NDC administration advertised as the panacea to growth and jobs. And the government is now ready to bring out their policy document, or the draft policy document, on the 1st of July. So let's be clear about it. In one breath, the president is saying that it is better to ground these ones in the NDPC. That's not what they are doing. And yesterday he says he has received the draft and he's putting it out, and that they are going to put out what he calls an independent secretariat and back it with legislation.
Eventually, if that is done, would that be the right step?
I'll come to that. I don't like us to gloss over things. I want us to be a bit clinical. So we must understand clearly that what the president is saying is not what he's doing. That's one. Number two, this is the same thing the MPP government did with a one district, one factory program aimed at boosting industrial activity, growth, and jobs. And of course, that was not grounded in the NDPC. That was also grounded in a secretariat, which was supposed to see to its implementation. And we saw a certain extent of its implementation and its impact. So what the NDC wants to do with the 24-hour economy, and what the MPP did with the 1D, 1F program, are similar in terms of approach. A political group, a conservative group, conceptualizes how it wants to boost industrial activity and set up a secretariat to execute it. And that is the same thing the NDC is doing. They have a 24-hour economy program. They're going to set up a secretariat to go ahead and do it. So let's be clear. Now, assuming that you want to escalate it to a an NDPC program, which will fit into, let's say, a national medium-term economic program. The little challenge with that is that if you look into our constitution, the framers of our constitution envisaged that the people of Ghana should have an opportunity to examine some of these proposals every 4 years and decide whether they want to continue with it or not. I've heard people say we should have a national development plan for 20 years or 30 years, and that when any government comes, it should just follow it. The risk of that is that then you deny the people an opportunity and you deny the political parties an opportunity to reflect and to make proposals that can sometimes even pivot. Let us assume that some of the activities that our administration was executing in the last 4 years, which in the assessment of Ghanaians did not meet their expectation and therefore voted us out of power. Assuming that is cast in stone for the next 10, 15 years, what would our verdict be? So I think that you need to allow governments the opportunity and political parties the opportunity to reflect and make these pivots and adjustments as we go along. It is rather the political class that should develop the conventions that what is good, in accordance with the directive principles of state policy in the Constitution, what is good must be continued. So that you don't dismantle everything because there's a new government and try to pivot away. And then also at the same time say that, but it should be cast under the NDPC. No, let's allow it. But also, the political group should be able to allow some things to continue.
Well, conventions haven't fared rather well, especially in this Fourth Republic. And for the sake of continuity, I know the NDPC angle. I totally appreciate what you're talking about. It would fetter, incoming administrations. But at the same time, I don't know whether conventions would work. Take some, I was going to talk about 1D, 1F, and you spoke about it. But free SHS, a typical one that Ghanaians, came to go by. And thankfully, the current administration is sticking to it and even extending it. The question is, how different could it have been if another administration had come and said, you know what, I said I would do this, but come to think of it, I'm not going to. That's where the devil is. But on the city, very quickly, Guta's head of business was in the studio with us, I think, 2 days ago or a day ago. And he gave a list of items from oil to everything in between that had reduced by the gallon, by the crate, and all of that on the back of the city's appreciation, according to him. My question, do you think, on the back of that example you gave about the first 100+ days of the NPP, do you think the city is going to flag at some point? Are you optimistic or pessimistic?
I don't think that speculating on the currency is a good thing. We spoke against it when we were in power. Being in opposition, it will be irresponsible on our part to be speculating against the currency. Some people did it when they were in opposition and they were looking for power. It may have served them well. We will not do that. I think that what is important is that the government provides clarity on how it seeks to sustain the appreciation, especially in the light of what all the independent watchers have explained is accounting for this appreciation. Because the market will look at the sustainability and react. So if the market is of the view that this will be sustainable, the market will react a particular way. If the market is not of the view that this will be sustainable, the market will react in another way. I have just read a piece by, I think, David Ofosu-Dotte, who is cautioning against fears of a currency dump. And those fears, for example, can be addressed when there's clarity on that sustainability. If the government says it's good leadership, between media and politicians, we can have a debate about it. But the market watchers, the dealers, the traders, they will make a decision whether that is, a good enough explanation. The economists from the Department of Economics at Legon and all of these places who are commenting, I've been hearing them, Bokpin and, all of these professors who have been commenting, I've been hearing them. They won't necessarily just take the face value of what is being said. They would look at the reasons and then they would also make a decision. So I won't speculate against the currency. It is not a responsible thing to do. Remember President Akufo-Addo saying, Sika Mpedidi, and then we all laughed about it. I won't speculate against the currency, But I think as the government provides some more clarity on exactly what policy or program it wants to use to achieve sustainability, the markets will then make a decision on it.
All right. You've spoken about the 5 pillars, and we all know them, on which, this appreciation has been anchored. One, are you surprised that the currency has appreciated by so much in such a short period, which has also impacted our debt portfolio in Ghana cedi terms? Are you surprised by that, especially when, like some people will say, we struggled quite a bit in 2024 to even keep it stable? Any surprises?
Isn't it interesting that now the NDC says that our debt burden, they have reduced our debt burden because of the currency performance? Isn't it very rich? You will recall when we were debating debt in Parliament, and I kept making the point that the cedi-denominated debt stock, because we borrow in various currencies, the cedi-denominated debt stock may change, but it doesn't necessarily mean the government has borrowed. And that if today the currency was 1 cedi to $1 and I owe 10,000, and tomorrow it slips, the debt stock goes up, but the government hasn't done anything. It hasn't borrowed, but the debt stock may go up. At the time, you recall, my friends Adongo, Jenapo, the rest on the other side, people did say, oh, please, people have borrowed. Today, when the appreciation of the cedi leads to a reduction in the cedi-denominated debt stock, they want to build a narrative around it that they have reduced our debt stock. It's very rich coming from them. I am happy that over time, some of these issues are showing themselves forth. And as we go along, we will have an opportunity to settle on the difference between what is just propaganda and what is real fact. Secondly, if you look at these 5 things that the economists have said are accounting for the appreciation of the currency, then where the currency is will be the natural consequence of these 5 things. If indeed, like the economists are saying, we haven't started paying the contractors, some of who would have to service their external credit obligations. If indeed, like the economists are saying, and that is a matter of fact, we haven't started servicing our external debt. I'm reading that I think Afrexim is asking that we honor our obligation of about $750 million. And all of those will now become a demand on our dollar reserves, and the demand and supply is what determines the price. If indeed it is true that the government has dumped about $1 billion from our gross external reserves onto the market to show up the currency, if indeed, like the government issued a statement a few weeks ago, the gold reserves that are about 30 billion now, to which they have not added much, and I saw your fact check at Joy News. The gold reserves at about 30 billion, which, by the way, we raised it from 8 billion to about 30, 8 tons to about 30 tons. If indeed it is a major contributor that they are, seeking to take credit for, and as has been explained, it was the MPP administration that did this major shift from 8 tons to 30 tons. Then where the currency is will be a natural consequence of these things. The most important thing, Akako, is what is the strategy to assure sustainability so that the markets will not shift either way that we don't want it to go.
Sweetie will come in shortly. Let me just give you my final question on the cedi. It has to do with this. The president, there's been recent talk about, the IMF program, and based on some of the gains we have made, possibly getting into that international market to borrow in the future. We know what the program says currently. Our hands are tied. But like some people are saying, it may be too early to start going back on the international bond market. What would be your response, especially when Ken Ofori-Atta, even in the midst of the IMF program and all of that, had already hinted that for him, he would want to go back onto that market? How do you respond?
I think that we should keep our eye on our debt targets. Part of the challenge that we have in economic management is the challenge of hidden debt. In fact, I just returned from the IMF a few weeks ago on a conference on hidden debt. And the problem with hidden debt, especially for a growing economy that borrows in multiple currencies and has state-owned enterprises that are also accumulating their own contingent liabilities that come to hit you, is that if you don't take care at any particular moment, you could get into a debt distressed position because of the ways by which debt is accumulated as a republic. And so it is important that A, when you have set yourself a clear debt target, and in this case, I think the target we've set for ourselves is about, if I follow the amendments that have been done, it's about 65% of GDP. When you have set yourself that clear target, you also make room for the unintended elements of debt accumulation, the hidden debts that are coming from the state-owned enterprise. You've been hearing the energy minister, go on and on and on about he's found some debt here, he's found some debt here, he's found some debt here. You've been hearing the finance minister. All of those come to add up to your debt sustainability analysis. So it's not just going onto the market to borrow afresh. That all of that can come add to your debt stock and therefore impact your debt sustainability analysis. And it is in that regard that I think, A, we should keep our eye on the debt numbers. B, we should have a more comprehensive framework that does some regular debt analysis so that all sorts of hidden debt can be brought into it. Because today you could be sitting on 65% debt to GDP and you are happy. You did not know, or you do not know, that there's a 2 billion hiding here, 3 billion hiding here. So you may want to go to the market to ease your immediate liquidity pressure by going to pick another 200 million, 300 million. And by the time it all comes together, you've gone way beyond your limit. So two things: keep an eye on the numbers, but B, Ghana needs a more comprehensive, a more robust debt reporting framework. Today, the same person who prepares the debt request instruments, the same person does the debt analysis, the same person goes onto the market to borrow, and the same person reports on debt. By the way, the annual debt report for 2024, which should have been presented by the finance minister in Parliament now, has still not been presented. But that's an aside. The same person is putting together all of this data, and that data does not even comprehensively account for what is hiding at the SOEs or other contingent liabilities. So we should hasten slowly, festina lente, and keep an eye on the numbers, and rather develop a more robust framework for analyzing all the hidden debt, so that we don't get into a situation where before we blink, there's more debt coming in than we had originally programmed.
So while we wrap up on the conversation, I want to get your thoughts on this. I know that your obligations as the opposition parties to scrutinize policies and actions, demand transparency and clarity like you're doing, but also propose credible alternatives. So
That's true.
If you were if you were in power, but you are not, what would you do differently with the approach of the government with the 24-hour economy and how we are seeing the appreciation of the cedi? What would you do differently if they could pick your thoughts on that?
Well, to ensure that A, the policy and the program that they want to roll out is in consonance with global best practices for what they call nighttime economies or round-the-clock economies. You see, the 24-hour economy or the nighttime economy or round-the-clock economies is mostly demand-driven. If you study the history from the end of the Second World War to the 1970s, when a lot of nightlife activity in Europe and the UK, to the 80s and 90s, when now even restrictions on hours of work, etc., were now removed, it is mostly demand-led. So one of the best practices is to ensure that you are stimulating demand, because no businessman will just produce and store because you have said that you are running a 24-hour economy. So he will open his factory 24 hours to produce when there's no demand for it. So there has to be a clear demand stimulation component. If that is missing, in my view, respectfully, that becomes a deal breaker, because then you will lead producers to produce, but there will not be demand for it. The industries where there's a lot of demand, and I think this morning, Suti, as I was following your submissions, one of your panelists made the point that already there are businesses that are operating 24 hours. Why?
Right.
Because there's demand for it. So if that is missing, and if I can give, and if the government will listen, one of the major things they should pay attention to is demand stimulation, either locally and or internationally. If you don't do that, you're only going to lead producers to produce, and they will end up in the next production cycle in a lot of debt. There are other parameters that I'm sure when they bring forth the document we can measure with. Number two, on the currency side, you see the question is being asked that what is the clear policy that will sustain this? One of the reasons for which you have an inordinate demand and supply situation for currency is that even when we say that we have export earnings or our balance of trade is now positive, it doesn't necessarily mean that the forex proceeds of all of that is coming back into the Ghanaian jurisdiction. Theoretically, one of the things the Gold Board wants to do is to ensure that at least when it comes to gold exports, they can get all the forex repatriated into the jurisdiction. So they've banned everybody, then they are going to do it. And the expectation is that if they do it, they can bring the forex proceeds. Now, one of the things that as a country we need to focus on is to ensure that the rules around repatriation of export earnings across board are applied. That way, you will actually get more forex coming into the Ghanaian jurisdiction to support the Ghanaian currency than you are doing now. Today, you have people who export. They are supposed to retire their LOCs, through their banks. Many of them don't do it. There's no consequence. It is one of the things that, as a republic, we need to pay attention to have a sustainable way of earning forex. Because what we have to pay out, we will have to pay out. And then the managers of monetary policy, I have always insisted that monetary policy is not the job of the finance minister. The managers of monetary policy, the Bank of Ghana, need to be stronger when it comes to this free operation of a dual currency system in Ghana. They need to be, stronger in enforcing the rules. There are many jurisdictions in which you can't do dual currency transactions like we do in Ghana. They need to do a tighter job at that. The problem is that governments lack the political will to crack the whip when it comes to that area. We suffered it. Previous governments suffered it. I haven't seen any moves by this new government that says that they are going to crack the whip some more when it comes to the dual currency regime in this republic. But it is something that must be done. Else, you won't achieve much.
Let me ask for your reaction to, when you listen to the president, he sounds as if they're very intentional with what they're doing with the currency, which is the result which we're seeing in the appreciation, and that he will not let it get to one cedi, $1, because that will cripple our economy in some ways. How do you react to that sort of rhetoric? It sounds like they know exactly what they're doing and they will not watch it, land us into doom. Rather, they're just trying to ease the financial burden on the Ghanaian, especially those who are, involved in imports-driven enterprises. How do you react to that?
No, I mean, I think we should pay attention to the facts. What are the facts? Those 5 major contributors, I think, have been explained very well by the economists that you've spoken to in the last 1 week. I'm not going to necessarily reiterate that. So if I look at that and if I look at what the president is saying, the Trump tariff effect is not about good leadership in Ghana. The fact that we haven't started paying our debt obligations is not about good leadership in Ghana. The fact that we haven't started paying contractors is not about good leadership in Ghana. But like I've said, I don't want to major on the minors. We know what the facts are, the 5 things contributing to this. And the question is, what is the plan to sustain? I think that's where we should focus attention.
My last question to you, away from economy, is on the matter of the removal of the now suspended Chief Justice. We know that in a unanimous decision, that petition for interlocutory injunction on her suspension has been thrown out again. What options is she left with? Or, well, if you can give me, just drop a pin in terms of where we are right now in the processes.
Well, I think for her, she's got to fight for her rights in the ongoing process. But I think any honest person knows that what is going on is politics and not law. Anybody who says that this is Article 146, 147 is either complicit in it or is being naive. Everybody knows that what is going on is politics. This was premeditated. This was pre-announced. This was pre-advertised. There are clips of, now President Mahama announcing that they have a plan to appoint more NDC persons onto the benches. They announced quite clearly that they were of the view that the benches were not favorable to them. They bastardized, the Chief Justice and the Supreme Court extensively when they were in opposition. I was a part of our legal team when we were going through the last election petition. You see all the spurious remarks that are made about her on social media, calling her all sorts of names and trying very hard to link her to the MPP. And so the intention was clear ab initio. If that had not been the case, then people could actually believe that there is some innocuous constitutional process going on.
But this that same constitutional provision has been used.
If I just may, what is going on is a pre-advertised, pre-orchestrated, pre-planned exercise, now using the legal processes as a cover. And I don't think anybody is fooled by that. But what I'll say to that is that the consequences of our actions lie ahead of us.
Speaking of which, Mahama Yariga, the majority leader, has spoken about some actions that could take place to streamline further the removal of a Chief Justice. But if I am to take the points you make that this could be, and I'm not using your words here, frivolous, maybe something that is wishy-washy and is being perpetrated with the simple aim of getting the CJ out, my curiosity then lies with the courts, the apex court. Yesterday she was in front of her own colleagues. And the petition as submitted by Godfrey Adame was lost. It was unanimous. The losses at the apex court, would it in any way reflect the law? Or is it that there too, we are not seeing certain things?
So let me start from what my very good friend and the respected majority leader, Mahama Yariga, admitted to yesterday, that they intend to bring rules to Parliament to provide for what they are already doing. And I think it is an admission, it's a naked admission, that though the courts struck down the initial application that what is going on is unconstitutional because the rules or the subsidiary legislation around the exercise of this discretionary power are not in place, they are admitting that actually that is the case. And that is why they are now coming to prefer rules to try to do what they have already done. Because, for example, that prima facie determination has already been done. So what they are doing is an admission that that application held a lot of substance in it. I have said that the consequences of actions that we're all taking, they lie ahead of us. And posterity will judge all of us for the actions and the inactions and the decisions that are being made today and are being justified in what. Sometimes when I watch some of our colleagues on TV, going on and on and on, convicting her in the court of public opinion, when even her application to supplement her affidavit is being thrown out on the grounds that it discloses information that should not come out. And you have senior government officials sitting on television purportedly giving details which should not come out. You can see the double standards in it. And you can see the premeditated exercise at play. And that's why I've said anybody who is pretending that this is just an operation of Article 146 or 147, in my respected and humble opinion, is either complicit or is being naive in this, because everybody knows what
is your side also being political then? Some have suggested that your support and Godfrey Adame representing her. In fact, I don't know whether it's Justice Tanko yesterday making mention of the fact, reminding the former AG that he had heard him on radio, talking about some of the vexed matters that are in court. And the former AG now saying that, he was on our network and someone misled him and he said certain things. I don't know what your thinking is on that. But maybe we should then just segue into the Wontumi case, which is where we're going to wrap it up. He was picked up and the processes in between, I believe it's the Afrexim Bank and money involved. Then there's also illegal mining and all that. And I want you to tie to it the issue of Latif Idris, a colleague of ours who was manhandled by some members of the NPP. How do you see that composite of matters? What's your reaction to it?
Let me land on the Chief Justice's matter. And you were asking about what therefore do we make of members of the NPP who have, expressed concerns. And
in other words, if it's political on the side of the NDC, is it political on the side of the NPP as well?
Yes, and that's what I want to react to. You see, this sort of double standards that sometimes we want to run in this country. I think,
Kojo, please clarify, who wants to run?
All of us. all of us,
Okay, all right.
to run in this country, I think it's something we should take a second look at. In one breath, when Mr. Godfrey Dame represents the Chief Justice, then the matter takes a political color. In another breath, when the known lawyers and advocates of the NDC and even the Speaker now represent the petitioners, that one doesn't take a political color. I mean, what sort of double standards is this? It beggars belief.
It has been said. It has been said that some of the, and if you care to mention names, I mean, we could go on that trajectory. It has been said that in the selection of the CJ as suspended, Godfrey Adame was instrumental. Is that true or not?
Let me land my argument. You started off by alluding or invoking the question of a certain political alignment. And my response, which I'm making, and then I'll go to the Wontumi matter and come to this one that you have raised. My response is that this double standards, this hypocritical standards that all of us, the circles that we are running, are indulging in, beggars belief that in one breath, people want to make an argument that the matter takes a political color when Godfrey Adame serves as counsel for the CJ. And the same people who make that argument conveniently forget who the lawyers on the other side are. The same people who want everybody to believe that the matter takes a political color when Godfrey Adame represents the AG now develop amnesia when it comes to the lawyers on the other side. And that is why I and a lot of my colleagues have made the point that this matter is politics and not law, because it was a predetermined, pre-orchestrated, pre-announced exercise. And what is now going on is the use of Article 146 and 147 to give color. So when you say, oh, it's a constitutional process, oh, it's a constitutional process. And I'm saying to you that if this was an innocuous constitutional process playing out, and there had been no advertisement, prior advertisement of the mens rea, many people may just, follow it. But because of the pre-advertised intention, it is clear to everybody what is going on. Now, let me come to Wontumi.
All right, and could you just make it a bit brief for me? We've actually, our time is almost done. Just make those submissions a bit brief for me, and we cap it.
Very well. I think, as has been mentioned, especially by the immediate past former vice president, it is very important that people's constitutional rights are upheld. You may not like somebody, but you should be the first to speak in defense of his constitutional rights, because if those rights are trampled upon and we establish a culture of trampling upon those rights, tomorrow your rights could be trampled upon too. Here's a person who had been invited by the police CID, had attended, had been granted bail, and was participating in a police CID investigation. And when he was discharged for the day to return the following day, then you had this rumble style. I watched that video of one journalist who was reporting about how the arrest took place and how Mr. Wontumi was physically assaulted by the people who arrested him. Here's somebody who is not a flight risk in any way, somebody who is already cooperating with investigative bodies. And then you have this Rambo style pickup and then an attempt to keep him in the cooler and deny him bail for a number of days. Everybody understands what is going on. And I'll end with this. Sometimes when parties win power with an overwhelming majority, there's so much goodwill that you feel you can get away with everything. Remember, the MPP had over like 1 million votes unprecedented in 2016.
800,000.
Yeah. And, sometimes you think there's so much goodwill you can get away with anything. Posterity will judge it all. Right. This is there was no basis for going to pick him up and keep him in the cooler for somebody who was already cooperating with the police process and was reporting every day to the police station. How did he become a flight risk all of a sudden? It is clear that what the administration wants to do is to use the coercive efforts of the state to cow its political opponents into submission. In any case, like his lawyers are saying, the matter apparently is a civil matter, not a criminal matter.
Right.
And we do this, we will all be here in good time to see how it pans out.
You've sidestepped my question on Lateef Idrisu and his assault.
What was that question specifically?
Oh, on the Wontumi issue. And then there was a call for people to mass up. And then Lateef Idrisu was being, who was reporting on the matter, he was assaulted by some NPP stalwarts. Did you see the video?
No, I haven't. I've seen a police statement that says that they are going to investigate it. I'm hopeful that the police will investigate it and will be able to establish what exactly transpired and the persons responsible for it brought to book. Remember, when I was information minister, I will even be the one to draw the attention of the police that supporters of my party have done something untoward in the media house and that they should be arrested and dealt with. So I will not support any such thing. The police investigation will need to be properly done. And then if persons are found to have indeed done that, those persons brought to book. Quite recently, the minority leader was in a demonstration and was assaulted by the police. When the police called for an investigation, do you know the status of that investigation? They have now found out after reviewing video evidence the kind of assault that took place, but they are being quiet on it. And it is important that we follow that up as well and then bring it to the fore. So the police should do the investigation. Who they find culpable, regardless of whose ox is good, let him face the law.
Important point you make. That's how we cap it off. But what I will say is that if indeed there is some footage like that, I think it would be up to you, members of parliament, including the minority leader, to let us see that footage. Because all we saw was his purported assault on a certain police officer.
I am happy you mentioned this.
So maybe it would be in the good interest of Parliament to put this other side out.
During the police investigation, the police PR department with its own cameras there has the footage which has been reviewed. We are waiting humbly that they will finish the investigation and bring it all out. It is in their custody. We are waiting for them to bring it all out.
All right. Sweetie?
Yes, thank you so much, Kojo Oppong Nkrumah. He's Member of Parliament for Fuanse Ayuribi and Ranking Member on Economy and Development Committee in Parliament. Thank you. Hopefully we get to see you again. So now, if you're looking for a home in a prime location, Nesta's Home has got you covered. Our properties in Tema Committee 26, just behind Palace Mall, offers a serene atmosphere, easy access to transportation routes and social amenities. Off-plan prices start at $35,000 US. So contact us today on these numbers: 053 101 4440 or 053 101 4447. You can also visit our website at www.nestas.com.gh.
Well, even as you think of that home, you also want to think about water, right? So let's talk water tanks. Do you know the secret to real water storage? It's actually silly simple. If your tank doesn't have the tortoise on it, it's not the correct tank. That's right. The tortoise tank, Syntex tank, is the champion of water tanks. It is strong, it is durable, it is built to handle our Ghanaian weather. So rain or shine, Syntex tank has got your back. So my people, go outside, check your tank. If it doesn't have a tortoise on it, it's time to think about upgrading. Join the Syntex tank family today and enjoy water storage that's tough like a tortoise. Call 0244 335 168 to buy now or find one of our 400 agents nationwide. You can also shop online at syntexgh.com. Syntex tank, a strong, a tough. Stick and stay. We'll be back with more action shortly.